So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth with your hosts, Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno. It is both a radio show and a podcast about mindfulness. Two lawyers from New Jersey talking about mindfulness. Who would figure? But appropriately, Dave, since we were recently again on a mindset panel, we have another great guest and another lawyer who's amazing at what she does and is in this space about improving her life as a professional and a person, and is out there trying to give her wisdom to other people. And that's who I met on this panel.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's Melissa Rosenblum, who is another attorney, criminal defense attorney. We have three on this panel today.
Three New Jersey Supreme Court certified.
And certified, which is the real deal certification. You know, we get so frustrated when we see the super lawyers and all these other labels when the three of us really have cut our teeth in criminal trials in front of juries and got the approval of the New Jersey Supreme Court. But she's also a podcast host, the Mighty MERP podcast host, also an adjunct professor at Stockton University, and an advocate in attorney wellness, which is one of our initiatives out there, not only on this podcast, but beyond with keynotes and other CLEs and stages. So it is such a pleasure to connect. Melissa, I wasn't on the panel down in AC. I had two other panels, but I would have been right there next to you guys. And I heard, although I wasn't there, Melissa, you had a little 5 minutes of Thrive on journaling. Is that correct? Are you the journaler that I heard on that podcast, on that particular stage?
I did mention journaling. So let me just say thank you for inviting me. I think the three of us all do have a passion for wellness and well-being. Dave, you and I have talked about it at other meetings. I know that it's such a priority. So what I did talk about is that on my 5 minutes to Thrive, I gave a list of 6 things that I highly recommend everyone does. And I have 4 adultish children, and I nag, encourage, and text every day to say, have you done? And I list those 5 things out. They get gold stars for each of those 5 things. And I'll tell you what they are. They're not in any way genius. They're just ways for us all to improve our day and improve our wellness and our mindset, which is all really important. And if you journal, you get 5 bonus stars.
Boom! I get them.
So journaling is really important. And I don't know if you know this, so I'm just going to tell you the reason why journaling is important is that it is an actual tool to process your emotions. So there's value in that. It does help you manage stress, and it helps you focus and find clarity. So there's lots of different ways to journal. What I did admit is that the reason why it has 5 stars is that out of all the things I recommend, it's the hardest for me. I think that sometimes writing what I'm thinking or feeling in that moment at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day feels like once it's written, it's permanent in some way. So journaling is the hardest for me out of all the things I recommend. But sometimes it's just writing as simple as, 3 positive of the days. And 3 positives could be a client simply saying thank you, or me waking up at 5 o'clock and getting that 5-mile run in, or it does not have to be, I just won a jury trial. It does not have to be a huge positives, but yeah, so the journaling is 5 points. So because it is so valuable, and also probably the hardest thing for a lot of people to build into their routine.
I think that journaling also, kind of to my 5 minutes, and I won very quickly, I was at the very end of it, but is a recognition that today is the first day of the rest of your life, which is such an important concept that every today, right now, in the present moment, you have the biggest opportunity for change. And secondly, with the journaling, it slows me down, and I need to slow down. I think we're all type A personalities. We all have very lofty jobs in terms of what we do, and our decisions that we make a difference in the lives of other people profoundly. And you, on top of that, are juggling as a matriarch of a family, a podcast, multiple balls that are in the air. It literally ties you to a place and time to concentrate on things that are important to you, that if you don't journal, you're not going to think about. There's a religious sect that calls it the examination of conscience. At the end of every day, you do an examination of conscience. And I think journaling helps in that regard too, right? Sets the time. So I know you're huge with it.
I am on a couple different fronts. I think for me, and I've been regular for about 2 years now, and that is morning and night. And what it does for me is establishes all the things I have versus the things that I don't have. You know, oftentimes in this selfie culture that we're in with Instagram and feeds and likes, a lot of people are comparing their situations to others. And I think that part one of wellness is really understanding what we have versus what we don't have. And I think that's really the first thing I have in my journal. The question what can you get excited about today? What do you appreciate today? These for clarity, gratitude, etc. And just clearing the day and what are the priorities.
Right. And it lets you be present, because it's presence in the moment is really, people are so worried about the future, or they're, focused on, what they could have done in the past, that they're not living in that moment. So, the idea that you're focusing on the day. I know for me, the mornings, I think it's great that you wake up and you're able to journal, to like really write down the focus of the day. I find that for me, when I wake up, I want to stretch and move my body and exercise. And exercise is one of the 5 other items that I recommend to move your body in some way. It doesn't have to be a 5-mile run. It can be a 10-minute stretching. It can be a 10-minute walk. But that's why journaling, just again, everyone has what works. That's why journaling at the end of the day and just writing the positive as well. And it changes your mindset when you can look at the end of the day and not maybe the frustrations or the stresses, but what you achieved in the positive.
Mm. Bob, you talk about slowing things down. I often joke, I've found a way to slow down time. And they're like, how? How? But the end of the day, if you could just take a moment to reflect on what did you do in the morning? Who did you talk to? What did you learn? What are things you could recall? Like that little technique at the end of the day really allows you to kind of chunk it up in that last 24 hours and spend time reflecting. Because reflection is important, because everybody's on the go. Next thing, next day, next project, next case, next client. I mean, especially as attorneys, we're always on to the next. Mm-hmm. So just like a moment of reflection is critical. And that's where I find that the brain dump that I do, it's almost like a brain dump that allows me to sleep better too. Because how often do people just get into the bed and look up and then start to think and dwell, and then you're exciting your brain and it's harder to fall asleep. So I've also found value in slowing it down, and then also really easing the mind into the relaxing sleep that we all need as well.
Right. And so one of the things I also mentioned is, and I agree, so we're going to hit, as we're talking, all my big buzzwords of my stars. So I mentioned journaling was the 5 stars. Exercise, you get 1 for exercise or body movement. Sleep, you get a star for sleep. 7 to 9 hours is what we need. And when you talk about the slowing time in the evening, I would say the same thing, a little differently. Have your bedtime ritual, go to bed at the same time every night, turn your phone off, my kids laugh at me. At 8:30, my phone dings and I say, I'm going upstairs. And I go to sleep. I go up, I do my bedtime routine and make sure that my phone is off by 9:30. And I go to bed at around 9:30 every night. Sometimes it's even earlier than that. And again, I do understand that if you have little kids, depending on where you are in your life, 8 hours of sleep is not always plausible or possible. But good sleep improves decision making. It helps you focus as well. It helps actually regulate your emotions. And I think when I say it, people would be clearly agreeing. But, I'm sure if you're exhausted, you would agree that you're not as good on your feet. You're not as good of an advocate. You're not as good of a lawyer. So again, all of these things they go to becoming better mentally healthy and as well a better attorney during the day.
So we have exercise, we have journaling, we have sleep. What else?
These are my simple things that I do.
Hydrate.
Stay hydrated.
Oh, wait a minute.
This is my 48. There you go.
It's for anyone watching or listening. Bob has a pink pen with Melissa's law firm name on it.
So this is my 40-ounce water bottle. I'm on my second one already. So at least when I'm done with this, I know I will have 80 ounces of water. Again, hydration helps with focus, energy, mood. And have you ever had like a midday headache and wonder why?
No.
No, because I'm hydrating like you. I mean, it's one of my things in the morning too. So
yeah, so those are my 4.
mm-hmm.
And then the last one, I think it does connect, Dave, with your slowing down time, which is meditation or breath work.
Of course.
Learning to breathe. And throughout the day, it is so important. I go from court to court, and sometimes I have meetings from 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30. I'm meeting clients back to back to back. And I need to take a moment, take a break, and breathe before I go to the next meeting. And that slows down time for me as well. And so I try to breathe in the morning, actually, for a few minutes before I start my day and focus. And I like to do that also between clients. Also, I'm sure you both have this, like the clients that I work with in criminal defense, there is a lot of mental health issues with my clients. There's also a lot of just stress with the type of cases that we handle. And, the reality is we're not just we're dealing with people's lives. And there is a significant amount of pressure because for some people, it's really, we are all that they have that's keeping them out of prison or jail.
Well said.
Well, listen, we're gonna take a break, but Dave loves to say pressure is privilege, and we can get into the mighty pressure of people giving up their right to advocate for themselves and turning it over to you, and how your impact can make a devastating or a very positive difference in the lives of other people. You're listening to WMTR Radio's Nothing But the Truth. Bob Bianchi, Dave Bruno. We'll be right back.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
All right, welcome back. Wow, I mean, really powerful stuff. Like, talk to me a little bit about, like I said, Dave says pressure is privilege, and I think that this is something like as lawyers, criminal defense lawyers in particular, the ultimate punishment is at play here. I mean, people can can go to jail. And my Sirens and Summations newsletter is dealing kind of like a mindset that I've learned in both as a trial lawyer and a homicide prosecutor, but also as an ambulance and EMT, that to look to. They say an unexamined life is not worth living. Who said that? Shakespeare or something? Some big important person said that. And I think that there is so much texture there for us to look beyond just the nuts and bolts of a case. We see the good, the bad, and the ugly of human nature, but there's a lot of pressure associated with that. What are your thoughts on that? Because you are a successful business person dealing with high-profile criminal defense cases, and what you do can dramatically affect your clients. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think it's important to know that my clients are people with families. They are somebody's child, somebody's parent, somebody's spouse. And so many times when people ask me how I do what I do, I will tell you, I like all my clients. And the ones that I don't really like has nothing to do with what they're criminally charged with.
Yeah.
My clients are people that are struggling. Most of them are struggling with drug addiction. They might be struggling with mental health. They're living lives that most of us cannot even imagine. And, I think why my business is successful and why I'm good at what I do is because I listen to my clients. I listen to what they need. I really am trying to help them as best I can. And I'm very direct and honest with them of what I can do and what I can't do. I think that it's important not to make false promises to individuals, to your clients. I think it's really important not to scare them into hiring you. Have you ever heard clients say they called an attorney and the attorney said, oh my goodness, that's a mandatory prison sentence. You have to hire me today, or else you're going to end up in prison. I don't do that. I want them to know that I will advocate for them. I will fight for them. And I don't know. I mean, how do I handle the pressure of that is to make sure that I am being very thorough and deliberate with my representation. The only time I've ever really walked away from a case, and it was probably when I was in my 20s as a public defender, is because in the end, I didn't feel like I gave them my best, that I in some way minimized their situation and felt at the end of it that I could have advocated better. But on the cases that I have had, even recent trials where it did not go exactly as my client had hoped, I know that I listened to the client felt heard, the clients was zealously represented. They were happy in the end because they knew I was doing the best I could for them based on the facts of the case. How do you handle it when you go home? I think you do have to compartmentalize a little. I think that it's okay for attorneys to go to therapy. I have in my life, and I am currently in therapy, sometimes to deal with this trauma that we deal with as lawyers, which isn't unusual as well.
I think that, I just want to interrupt there. I think that one of the most powerful tools that I had when I got nominated to be the prosecutor was my defense experience. I had far more trial experience as an assistant prosecutor and became certified with my experience as an assistant prosecutor. But I was able to, I think, show the staff. And one of the first things I said to them was, if you ever refer to a defendant in an objective way, and there's a lot of name calling that went on. They're a piece of whatever. Or if you do that, you won't have a job. And I don't care how long you've been here, because once you do that, you're taking the humanity away from the person. And most of the people we're confronting, right, Dave, you were one of my APs, are drug addicted or mentally ill. And we have an opportunity to make them better. Now, 10% of the people maybe need to put away for as long as humanly possible. They're repeat offenders and they're a true danger to the community. But I think that it changed the culture it changed the perspective that, do you realize how powerful it is at the end of the day that you made somebody's life better, not worse, not punitive? And I think that that's really an important aspect of what it is that you're saying here. But at the end, when I say to Mike, I'm sorry, last point, when I say to a client, like, what can you expect from us? I agree with you. We give them no, inflated expectation other than to say, we're going to do the best we can to give you an optimal result. And they respect that.
Yeah. And sometimes, my clients come in and I'm going to say, here are the facts that are really problematic with the case, and let's work on getting the best result that we can based on it, and you can, I have clients that want me to file lots of motions, and sometimes you just have to say that's not a real motion or that's not a real argument. But sometimes you have to say you're not going to win that because of these reasons. And if you explain to them the law and that they can understand it, they're going to respect what your position is. Mm-hmm. And still, you can still zealously advocate for them. I was going to follow up on your conversation as a prosecutor to your prosecutor's office. I think for a lot of prosecutors, and this is when I was in Philadelphia as a public defender, as well as all the years that I've been practicing almost 30 years, is that for young prosecutors, this is their case.
Yes.
It's a file. Mm-hmm. And it's not my case. My case is a person. My case is the history and interview that I do for my client is based on their whole life. I ask them so many questions about their background, including where they went to high school, where they went to college, if they went to college, are they in the military? Where did they serve? Have they done any philanthropic activities? Have they volunteered? Are they a member of churches or synagogues? All these questions that are so much more than when they come in and sit down to say, what do you tell me what happened when you were arrested. That is like the least interesting part of my interview.
We're speaking the same language, Erica. We're going to definitely vibe on this one because I believe 90% of what it is that we do is exactly what you just said. You're just a file to the prosecutor. And we do mitigation packages, we call them, where we get all of that information, the very same information that you have, to humanize the client. And, when you tell a client you're not a bad person, we're seeing a snapshot, and the prosecutor sees a snapshot in the worst day of this person's life.
That's what I say.
And we can now show we could show a dad or a mom or, a family person or volunteering, military service, mental health, addiction. We're trying to take care of those issues. It is amazing the change in the prosecutor's heart with regard to how to dispose of the case. Dave and myself literally did one time in a homicide case where we just said to the prosecutor, would you come in the jury room and just talk to our client? Can you, and they resist it. One of the toughest prosecutors we've ever dealt with. Eventually, we convinced them to go in the room, and we got the result we were looking for. Right, Dave?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, we do the same as you. We value that. Prosecutors have no idea who the clients are and what they've been through, and it's a way to navigate and advocate.
Right. And again, the getting the result you want is not always a dismissal. Sometimes it is dismissal, obviously, if it's inappropriate, but sometimes it's probation. Sometimes it's treatment. Sometimes it might be an inpatient program. Sometimes it's mental health, and sometimes, I had a very public case in the last few years where my client was a victim of domestic violence for 30 years. She shot her husband. And they initially charged her with murder. And we got a domestic violence expert. We created a very significant mitigation packet. And they downgraded it not to agman, but to manslaughter. Mm-hmm. And she is serving a prison sentence, but she was looking at 30 do 30, and she ended up with a 6-year prison sentence. Yeah. And it was the right sentence based on all of that. And in the end, she chose to take the deal. We talked about the pros and cons. But it was, a lot of work to get us to the negotiated plea, a negotiated plea that she felt was fair based on the conduct versus, the initial charge, which was a murder charge, which we always knew wasn't the right charge, but we had to bring it to the prosecutor's office, and they were willing to listen. We met with them with our expert witness, and I said, ask the expert anything you want. Literally, like, it's all open. And the prosecutor's office did, and based on everything they learned in the report, they realized that that was the fair and just result.
You said the biggest thing, I think that is my biggest gripe, is that prosecutors that don't listen. There was not a defense lawyer in the 6 years that I was a county prosecutor that I would not see if they wanted to see me specifically. Certainly my assistant prosecutors were there to listen, maybe not accept everything they're saying, but to listen, because that's that door open. That what you just did right there is 90% of what we do as lawyers that people don't understand. We're trying to get the prosecutors to the right punishment, not necessarily the most significant punishment. So great job on that.
Yeah, and just a final point, and that is why we do what we do, right? A lot of people sometimes ask, how could you represent people charged with crimes? And the fact of the matter is, the three of us are aligned right there because they're people. They're people going through difficult situations in their lives, and they need advocacy, and they need experience, and they need people that know what they're doing. And that's why the three of us are what we are.
Right. And I think you said it, Bob, and I always say something similar. Who wants to be judged by the worst day of their life or the worst decision? You know, we are so much more than that as people, you know, and I would not want to be judged by the one, you know, we all make mistakes, but I would not want to be judged as a person based on the worst decision of my life. And that's the reality. And, you know, again, that's why when we're talking about what we do, there is this component of how to be the best at it, and that I'm going to take it back to the mental health, which is also taking care of ourselves as we're taking care of our clients.
Put your mask on before you give it to somebody else, right? When it drops from the plane. All right, listen, we have to, unfortunately, that is the time we have. We had to have her back, Dave. I think we just scratched the surface.
We'll definitely be seeing her around.
Scratch the surface.
For sure. You're down in Atlantic County. We're up here in North, but plenty of opportunity for collaboration moving forward, Melissa. It's been a pleasure.
It sounds great. It sounds great. Can I ask if I'll see anyone in Trenton tomorrow?
We're not going to be in Trenton tomorrow.
What's in Trenton tomorrow?
All right. There's the well-being. There's the annual well-being event at the Hughes Center.
I'm not sure we even know about it, but I do want to say this. Please tell everybody we said hello. Of course. We'll have you back on, but real quick before we go, this podcast that you're doing, the Mighty MERP, where can we find that?
You can find Mighty MERP podcast on any platform that you listen to podcasts. So if you like Spotify, it's there. If you like Apple iTunes, it's there, or Apple Podcasts. And also at, as simple can be, www.mightymerp.com.
MERP.
MERP. MERP.
MERP. I love it. I love that word, MERP.
MERP. And that's the same place, too. We're with you.
In front of you.
MERP. Merchandise?
I have
merchandise?
Merchandise.
It's not just merchandise, it's merchandise.
All right, that's it, Dave. WMTR Radio, Nothing But the Truth podcast is going to drop when? We know the radio show is 9:30 on Saturdays.
Yeah, the podcast is Wednesdays, Spotify, iTunes, same places you can find the Mighty MERP. Also, nothingbuttetruthpodcast.com, the landing page. It's got all the video of all of our guests. I have lost count, honestly, how many guests we have, but we continue programming here on Nothing But the Truth. And Melissa, it has been a pleasure. We speak the same language, a lot of similarities, and it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on Nothing But the Truth.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you.
We're the Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors, and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said my
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
To get a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.